Sesame Street, The City Worm and the Country Worm, a Sesame Street Book Club book by Linda Hayward, illustrated by Carol Nicklaus, a Sesame Street Golden Press book, with voices and narration by Geeky Jr. and SpeekyGeeky's Mr. Geeky.
Hey, Slimy,
Said Oscar the Grouch, holding up a thimble filled with water.
you're on.
Oscar meant that it was time for Slimey, his pet worm, to practice his newest trick.
I can hardly wait to tell everyone about this,
said Oscar.
I bet no one has ever seen a worm dive from a diving board into a thimble full of water.
Slimey climbed up to the little ladder. He wriggled to the end of the diving board and looked down. There was a thimble full of water. Slimey took a deep breath and dived. He landed in the thimble with a splash.
Terrific dive,
said Oscar.
A few more practice sessions and you'll be ready for the big time.
Good, said Slimey as he tumbled off.
And now I have to go tidy up my room. My cousin Squirmy is coming to visit me tonight.
Tidy up your room,
cried Oscar.
When my cousin Trashy visits me, I always mess up my room.
That evening, Squirmy arrived with her suitcase. The first person she saw on Sesame Street was Oscar. Excuse me, sir, she said. I'm looking for my cousin Slimey. Does he live around here?
Yeah,
said Oscar.
Slimy lives right there in that shoebox.
Thanks, said Squirmy. By the way, is it always so noisy in the city? Oscar looked around at Sesame Street. Cars and trucks were rumbling by. The garbage collector was rattling cans. The police van's siren blared as it sped past. A rock band was practicing upstairs.
What noise?
Said Oscar.
I don't hear anything. When you live in the city, you get used to noise.
Just then, Slimy wriggled out of his shoebox.
Cousin Squirmy, how nice of you to come.
Cousin Slimy, it's wonderful to be here,
Welcome
said Slimy.
to the Big Apple.
What apple? Asked Squirmy.
Oh, that's just a funny name for the big city.
Said Slimy.
We call our city the Big Apple.
Slimy took Squirmy to his room and helped her unpack. Squirmy loved Slimy's room. She admired his plants on the windowsill and his tie-dyed pillows on the bed and his I Love Sesame Street poster on the wall. The next day, Slimy gave Squirmy a tour of the city. He took her to the Earthworm Museum. There they saw 20 different kinds of dirt in the soil sample room. They both enjoyed a colorful mobile entitled Worm Turning in Slow Motion. Slimy and Squirmy ate their lunch at a sidewalk cafe. That afternoon, they climbed to the top of the Sesame Street sign and took in the view. In the evening, they had front row seats at the biggest Earthworm musical stage show in town. In fact, it was the only Earthworm musical stage show in town. The city is a very exciting place, said Squirmy, even if it is noisy. The next day, it was time for Squirmy to go home. Thanks for everything, she told Slimy. I hope you will come and visit me in the country.
I've never been to the country,
said Slimy.
Do you have a lot of museums and shows and sidewalk cafes?
No, said Squirmy. We have a lot of quiet. After Squirmy left, Oscar showed Slimy a sign he had made.
Isn't this a terrific sign?
Said Oscar.
I painted it myself.
It said, see the amazing diving trick. Come to the show starring Oscar T. Grouch.
I didn't know that you could dive into a thimbleful of water,
said Slimy.
I can't,
said Oscar.
You are the diver.
Then why does your sign say starring Oscar T. Grouch?
Asked Slimy.
Because,
said Oscar.
I made the sign.
That is unfair,
said Slimy.
I think I will go on a long trip. You can do the show without me.
As Slimy packed his suitcase, he wondered where he should go. Suddenly, he thought of his cousin Squirmy.
I know,
he said.
I will visit Squirmy in the country. It will be nice and quiet there. No shows, no signs, no grouches.
Slimy went to the bus stop and waited for the bus. When Slimy arrived at his cousin's address, all he saw was a big apple lying on the ground. Where was Squirmy's house? He was very surprised when Squirmy poked her head out of the apple. Cousin Slimy, how nice of you to come.
Cousin Squirmy, it's wonderful to be here.
Welcome, said Squirmy, to the Big Apple. That's what I call my house. Squirmy lived in a real apple. Inside the Big Apple, there was a nice, cozy room. Slimy loved Squirmy's house. He liked the flowers on the table and the patchwork quilt on the bed and the Home Sweet Home sampler on the wall. The next day, Squirmy gave Slimy a tour of the countryside. They hiked through the crisp fall leaves. They went for a brisk dip in the local puddle. They even slept out under the stars. Slimy had never seen so many stars. There was only one problem. Slimy couldn't sleep. It was too quiet,
If only Oscar were here.
thought Slimy.
He would make a lot of noise, and I could go to sleep.
In the morning, Slimy and Squirmy were talking about this and that when a robin flew up and landed on the branch of an apple tree. Was that robin thinking about taking a nap? Was he planning to sing a song? Oh no, that robin was watching Slimy and Squirmy, and he was thinking about only one thing: breakfast.
This is the life.
Slimy was saying to Squirmy.
No cars, no trucks, no garbage collectors.
Suddenly, he looked up and saw monstrous claws heading straight toward him. Slimy was too scared to move, but Squirmy was not. She grabbed Slimy and pulled him into a hole in the ground. The robin could not reach them. After the robin flew away, they came out of the hole.
What was that?
Cried Slimy. Oh, that's just Robin Redbreast, said Squirmy.
You've seen him before?
Said Slimy. Oh, yes, answered Squirmy. You should see all the birds that live around here. Robins and thrushes and chickadees. When you live in the country, you get used to birds. Slimy decided that seeing one bird was enough. It was time to go home,
I guess I'm just a city worm.
said Slimy as he started down the road to the bus stop.
I like living in the city.
And I guess I'm just a country worm, said Squirmy. I like living in the country.
Goodbye, Cousin Squirmy. Thanks for everything.
Goodbye, Cousin Slimy. Come back soon. When Slimy arrived home, he was surprised to see a sign hanging on Oscar's can. It said, Welcome home, Slimy. The sign made Slimy feel good.
Well, how's the wandering worm?
Said Oscar.
Tired of riding buses,
Answered Slimy.
but I like your sign.
Hey, if you think the sign is great, wait till you see my new sign for the show,
Said Oscar. And he pulled out another sign that read, See the amazing diving trick. Come to the show starring Slimy T. Worm.
Well,
Said Slimy.
I guess I better start practicing.
The end. Don't forget to visit Geeky Jr. for more of the stories that you love, only on Geeky Jr. and SpeekyGeeky. Ask a parent or guardian if you can subscribe to Geeky Jr. today.